RPS crew and members had another big week.
Big T kicked things off in the MLB streets with an 80K night and was joined by RPS member Punisher, who also shipped for 50K. Coop added a 75K MLB hit of his own a couple days later, and Steve Boynton hit for 36K in NBA Showdown. Rumpier Sports member Simo shipped for 100K, and yet another RPS member had a monster hit when TYA558 became the latest to win a PGA Millie Maker. If you haven't signed up for Rumpier Sports Premium membership yet, now is the time to get in using the promo code RPSHeater25 for 25% off of your first payment on a monthly or weekly plan, not including Saberson.
Last week was another huge week for the K-Cast, making it 7 of the last 8 weeks that the live show ended in profit.
Rocking up over 30 units between UFC and NASCAR this weekend, Keg and his crew proved there isn't a more profitable in-game betting show on the internet.
Make sure to join Keg and get 20 hours of live betting winners each week for only $10 a week.
Finally, NFL Best Ball is in full swing over on Underdog, and you can get a deposit match up to $100 by using the promo code RUNPURE.
We'll be creating Best Ball contests all summer long, so make sure you subscribe to our Run Pure Sports YouTube channel to catch all of our free videos and keep running pure.
What is up, jabronis? JJ back here with Coop, Kager, talking a little NASCAR. I believe this race is called the Toyota Save Mart 350. Coop, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. It's going to be raced in the year 2022 for those that have been under a rock for the last few years or whatever. Before we talk on this race, Kager, I believe a few victory laps are in order. First of all, I thought we broke the race down really well last week as a team. Granted, I'm giving myself credit. I didn't really help much last week, but you guys did a really good job breaking down the race and talking on some live spots and talking on some. And I also think some of our points we went off on tangents. I think those were proved to be relatively true as well. We'll talk a little more on Chastain as the show goes along. But with all that said, Kager, talk us through what was the lottery for you last week. Just a really tremendous showing from a lot of the bets you made.
Yeah, it was good. Coop and I made over 20 units of profit on the race. We had the right idea of taking those Fords going into the race, but like we all talked about right before the show started, it was anything but cut and dry. Did not go any way I thought it was going to go, but at the end of the day, we were fortunate. We had Logano at a really nice price, and we move on to this week. But man, nothing has been cut and dry, right?
No, not at all. And Coop, on your end, what was your take on how that went down? I always love seeing Logano, as the cool kids call him, slide himself in there. But what was your take on the race as a whole? Because obviously you did quite well yourself.
Yeah, betting wise, it was great. DFS wise, it was a shit fest. Unfortunately, the Fords did, falter in the actual race versus how they practiced. So, we had Briscoe, we were high on, we had Blaney, we were high on, and, there was more, incidents, accidents, tire issues than what I expected. I expected to be a cleaner race. And unfortunately, those two right there were part of the tire issues. DFS wise, it wasn't good. Betting wise, it was great. The race was more entertaining than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed the race. Granted, certain things didn't go my way. I pushed myself very overweight on Chris Bell because, again, you got to take your shots, right? Especially if you're mass entering some of these bigger tournaments. So I was very overweight. I mean, Bell was high owned. Bell was about 50% owned, I think. I was like literally 90% Bell. So, Briscoe. So Briscoe popping a tire randomly, just goes to show how fun this sport can be at times. But needless to say, looking forward to getting back in the saddle today. So Coop, how about you walk us through this track?
We have a road course. It's 2 miles long. Has plenty of elevation changes. it's a short race, meaning Dominator points won't be in play really. There's only, I think, 27 or so for leading laps and 42-ish around that ballpark for fastest laps. So, it makes it tough in general. I told Jay earlier, I like viewing road courses from a DFS and especially betting strategy standpoint. I don't care for them because you are out of control of the race, so to say, because strategy is a huge, huge piece of this race. Strategy is important for all the races, but it's extremely critical at this race. And when you pit will determine, a lot of your fate. This isn't a track where you're going to go from 8th to 1st based upon the car solely. You're going to need some help from restarts. You're going to need some help from your pit team in order to do that, because, the first 2 cars, they just get out in front, and drive away for the most part, leaving, the 3rd place through 10th to 12th to 15th place, anywhere from 3 to 15, 20 seconds behind. So it's difficult. And then, not only that, the cars that are in the back are basically in a hornet's nest. And you see a lot of spins here. People going in the corners, they hit the bumpers and go out, or, they take the turn too deep and they lose control basically because of the tires. And the other piece with this is, a lot of cars stay on the lead lap because it's a 2-mile track. And typically there's not a huge amount of attrition. So, if you're in 15th place and somebody comes up from behind you and taps you and you spin, you're going to go back to 30th place. That's just the way it is, because it's the road track. And, we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of strategy involved in this race. And like I said, pit roads will be important.
Now, without Dominator points being very critical here, would you argue that place differential is by far today what'll likely win people the race versus grabbing any type of flavor of Dominator points?
That and finishing position, the Dominator, you're not going to be a Dominator. I'd look at it more of who you think will win, type of deal. And, if, let's say, Kyle Larson is on the pole, he goes out, he leads 50 laps. That's going to be good for him because it gives him more cushion to finish farther down. Whereas him and Chase Elliott split laps, and then one of them has some issues or both of them have some issues and they fall to, let's say, 5th, 6th, 7th, then, they're in question. They're going to lose those points and they're not going to pan out to what, people had hoped them to be.
I have a question for you guys from a DFS perspective, because I'm still learning. Or ordinarily, right, just because a car is winning the race doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be running the fastest lap. We see it all the time on an oval, right, Coop? But today, on road courses, don't you think that the leader is probably going to have the fastest lap every time around the track almost?
Yeah, if you look at COTA, I think there were 60 laps. And then you got to take away the caution laps because, you don't get fastest laps on there. But I think the leaders ended up leading, like 70% of the fastest laps. And, fastest laps, we've seen this year have come throughout the field, obviously with certain cars leading more than others. But this particular race, you might only have 4 or 5 cars that earn those fastest laps. So they are valuable, but they are, very little to be gone by.
Do you guys treat that differently, or you just play the same dominators as you guys normally would?
No, I mean, I myself will stick to this as a 1 Dominator lineup from those Dominators. Like, I don't want a lot of, cars starting up front within my lineup, because like I said, if you play Elliott and Larson together, Elliott goes out and he dominates the race, Larson's hung out to dry. He ain't going to do much for you. even if he finishes second, because there are so many other drivers back there who will gain positions, and think about it. Like, if you can gain 6 positions going from 18th to 12th, but like the loss of Elliott or Larson losing from going from 1st to 6th, plus if they don't have them Dominator points, they have nothing to offset it. So, and even if they do have them Dominator points, it's not very many to begin with to offset a huge loss. So, if you're playing Larson and Elliott, you really need them, 1, to earn some of them valuable points, and 2, to stick within the top 3 or 4 at the end of the race.
The part with these is I'd assume, Coop, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like I would assume on tracks like this, you don't see too many like crazy accidents because they're just not going as fast. Is that like
you don't see too many, but you would be surprised. The ones that do happen are kind of violent.
Really?
Yeah. They still have cement, they don't have safer barriers here. So if you hit the wall, and in a lot of places they have tires around it or barrels and things like that to help absorb it, but in certain spots,
what your big worry here, Jay, is just the restarts, the chaos on the restart. If you can avoid that, you're probably gonna run caution free for a while. But it's those restarts on road courses. You could wipe 10 cars out like that going around a turn.
I can see it. That definitely makes a lot of sense. All right, so where are we at right now? So we are at 81 people watching and 17 likes. What the fuck, people? Let's go ahead. Let's flick the like button. Let's not be silly. Let's not be freeloaders. Let's get our fingers out of our ass. And let's go ahead and like the video. You're about to get some decent content here. And we're going to run through the core plays.
Decent content.
What was it, Coop?
You said decent content.
Yeah. I mean, I'm being modest. I'm trying to be humble here, Coop. I'm not trying to flash my cock. I mean, maybe with the week Jason had, maybe he should stand up and flash his. What do you think, Coop?
No.
No, I'll pass.
No, not interested.
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody.
That is very speculative, though, Jason. Very speculative. So I would appreciate if you guys like the video. And always subscribe as well. We even make it easy for you with the bottom right, the icon right there for you in big bold letters. Subscribe. It's even spelled correctly. Imagine. But in relation to this race, and we're going to go through our core plays here. We're actually more or less the playbook that Coop writes every week. And this is something you get access for us. Like, granted, obviously, if you have the time to watch these videos and they're free and you're not a member, fine, great. But if you're not, like if you don't have the ability to watch these videos, and we go through the playbook, and it's something that Coop posts up very early prior to the race. It's up, usually 7-8 hours prior to the race even starting. And we're going to run through it, but it's something you can look through and you can see who our core plays are. Big T even has his own player pool for these races often. So yeah, be sure to check out what we do here at runpuresports.com. Because again, you're going to get all the information we're going to run through over this show, but you'll get it for every race. You'll get it for the Saturday races. And again, you wouldn't have to necessarily sit and watch the show for us to go through the breakdown. And it's all written for you also, because we're going to mention a lot of names. If you don't have the time to write things down or whatever, it is all documented on the site. So feel free to check us out, runpuresports.com. And we'll move forward then, Coop. So let's move into Dominators here. I know we mentioned a few names already. I agree with you that I think one of them is likely going to be in the lineup, but it does matter, right? I always find it interesting. They always seem to price these guys up super high, and your value plays, like as we get to the middle tier and your place differential, there just seems like a lot of misprices there, which is going to create some silly ownership, to be honest. But I think these guys, I think there's not going to be a crazy amount of coupled up ownership here. So I think you can try to be different there if you were to play like 2 or 3 Dominators, hypothetically. But again, you would be kind of hoping the worst happens during the race for you to win. But that's what makes things different, right? Especially if you're in tournaments. But walk us through the Dominators you like, Coop, and maybe who the person is you like the most today.
So while we're on pricing, like it is softer pricing this week than what we've seen. And I also think that due to that, we could see more of those drivers, paired together, so to say. Because it's not hard to pair Larson with Elliott if you want to. It's not hard to pair either one of them with Chastain. It's not hard to pair either one of them with Kyle Busch. So those would be my 4 favorite drivers to win this race. Yesterday in practice, which keep in mind was very limited, we saw 12 laps. Also in some of these laps, they're just, pussyfooting around, making sure that the cars, got everything right. And, they're not really into it. And then, they take off. So the times, are, not as realistic as what possibly they may be for some of the drivers. And then the other piece with what we saw yesterday is Elliott, Larson, and Chastain were the cream of the crop in the limited laps that they ran. Will that equate out today? Don't know. The biggest thing I see is the temperature yesterday was 20 degrees warmer than what it's going to be today. So the track's not going to be as slick as what it was, yesterday. And perhaps the cars, aren't set up as well, for what they're going to be enduring today. So, take practice with a grain of salt is what I, am going by. But, we have Kyle Larson on the pole. He's won the pole here. This is 4th time. And we have Chase Elliott. And, if you've been under a rock, these 2 guys are very good on road tracks, especially Chase Elliott, when you look at the amount of wins. Kyle Larson's not far behind him. So, these guys are going to be extremely popular. And, do so, I would imagine 45, 50% owned, especially with the softer pricing that we're going to see. And then you can take them and pair them together or play them individually. But either way you do it, they've got to have a perfect race for them. Because a lot of times what we're going to see here is before the end of the stage, the cars are going to pit. Some of them will stay out to get valuable stage points, but the winning strategy is to pit. And, the pit and stops are going to come into play too, because, you can definitely have to stop twice, possibly a 3rd time. It all depends upon how, the race flows as to if they'll stop that 3rd time. But like that 3rd time leaves them right on, the gas limit. And, if you go 2 times versus taking that 3rd time and making sure you have enough gas, you're going to be playing at risk because, if you run out of gas, you're done here. You're not going to make it back around. You're going to lose all kinds of positions. But, we could see drivers, who need that win, take that chance. But for me, the upside of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott is not nearly as high as what the downside is. Because like I said earlier, if they lose very few places, they're going to lose quite a few points. And points are valuable today because you're not going to see as many points in this race as what you would see in, a typical race or even a race that we saw last week. So, you want those points. And like you said earlier, the best way to get points is through place differential. So, for me, you can say, hey, why don't they just drive around, short pit every time, and they're going to stay out front every time? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way because of how the cautions are going to fall, so on and so forth. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. Plus, they're battling, if you win the stage, you get a playoff point. Those playoff points are valuable. So, we could see Larson stay out. We could see Elliott stay out. So, but pitting short pit wise is the best way to gain track position. And you can guarantee that the drivers who are in 10th on back, the majority of them will do that. And then to get back up through the field, if you don't, is quite a bit of a challenge. So, if an Elliott and Larson fall way back, they had the fastest times yesterday, but they did it in clean air. They didn't do it with cars around them either. So, with them, Can they get back up? Will their car function the same way? Will they get tapped by somebody else? Will they end up spinning? There's all kinds of questions. And, I think it's highly unlikely that they both stay out front the entire race. And I think the kicker for me is, I said Larson's been here 4 times on the pole. And those 4 times he won last year. The other 3 times he's finished 10th, 14th, and 26th. No matter how many laps he leads or gets fastest laps, as he finishes in one of those positions or around them positions, he's not going to pay off for you. Then you have Ross Chastain, going to be popular, was fast. I'm still lying on the negative regression that's going to happen for him. Kyle Busch is going to be my guy today because he offers a lot of place differential upside, and he also has the ability to get some of them valuable Dominator points. So for me, of those 4, it's going to be Kyle Busch.
I don't blame you. Like I said, I'm at the point now where I'm just complete mentally full fading Chastain. I think that he's going through some serious growing pains right now. And I think he's slowly but surely losing respect from other drivers. And I think if there was going to be a race, especially with what happened last week and especially what's been happening with him, if there's going to be a race where he's going to go a little extra cautious, I would think it's going to be a race like this one. And the reason he's been so successful has been his aggressiveness, but above that all, it's been his ability for his car to stay upright despite the aggression. It's been something that's been very, we'll call it running pure on his end. And I think that, he really perturbed Hamlin. I think he spun out Hamlin and Chase last week, didn't he? Both of them?
They both almost got black flag, Denny and Chastain, right, Coop?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think the Chastain's aggressiveness is, if there's a race where it's not going to be there, I think it's going to be today, because granted, we always go back to our roots, but at some point his aggression is just taking cars out every week. And, maybe he downscales that today. And if he does, he's not going to be as successful because his success is based upon that aggressiveness that he's had. Needless to say, Jay, what's your take on some of the top guys in this race?
From a betting perspective, I think that it's a short race, so these odds are going to change very fast live. So I think you have to plant your flag. You have to decide pre-race if you believe in your heart that Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson is going to win. Then I think you have to bet them both and do nothing the rest of the day. And you say, here's hoping. I can't do that at those numbers, because I do think that there are cars in this race, like Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain, week in, week out, have had the best car off the back of the trailer, 100%. Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain won the road race at COTA earlier this year. Kyle Busch is a phenomenal road course driver. He won yesterday in the truck race at Sonoma. He has a ton of wins here, and his car is not far behind, at least in practice. His car wasn't far behind. So in terms of value, Kyle Busch should not be 12-1 to win this race. So I think there's value on him. Daniel Suarez absolutely crushed the beginning of the road course at COTA before he had problems with his car. He's 12-1. That's probably accurately priced, but he's live today. I don't know what to expect from Denny. Tyler Reddick and AJ Allmendinger. Obviously, Allmendinger's a road course ringer, so he's literally built to win these types of races, and he's got good equipment. 16-1, that seems fair. Tyler Reddick was in contention to win at COTA earlier this year, and he finished, I think, in the top 3, I want to say. But from like 15-1 down, the only thing that I really see that has value is probably Kyle Busch at 12-1. And then you can make an argument for Ross Chastain because of how good the car is and how good he looked in qualifying yesterday. Should he be 10-1? Probably not. But at the same time, am I running to the window to bet him? No. But I think we're going to try to beat them. Coop had a great way, Jay, on the bet show to get a little coverage on Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. And that's taking the winning number under 10.5 at plus 105, right? That gives you Cindric, Harvick, gives you Larson and Elliott, and it gives you Ross Chastain. So you could bet that at plus 105, feel pretty good about that going into the race. And then you make your live betting decisions from there. Also, I like Kyle Busch to be the top Toyota too. That gives you a little coverage on his end as well. But the only guy that I would even remotely think about betting pre-race is probably Kyle Busch at 12-1. That number's just objectively wrong.
You're still devaluing that bet of under 10.5 by not adding LaJoie and Keselowski.
I'm sorry, LaJoie. You also get LaJoie and Keselowski with the under 10.5. My bad, Coop.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, I feel like with Chase Briscoe and how he kind of blew up last week, like he's just not going to be on people's radars this week. Not like he was last week.
Well, I'll tell you, Jay, he's a phenomenal road course driver, and he has a win here under the ARCA series. So I think that Ford has showed a ton of speed the last 2 weeks. You can't count them out.
I think when you look at him with where he's starting at 15th, I think he's got some decent place differential. And him T10ing isn't crazy either. His price is decent. He's like basically mid-tier price. What's your thoughts on him?
What do you think?
Me or Jay?
Well, either one. I mean, I know Jay kind of mentioned him a bit that he liked him on these tracks. So I was kind of getting your perspective.
No, I love him as a great pivot. He's priced right below AJ Allmendinger, who starts right behind him, with Dinger getting a bunch of ownership. And honestly, I think if you play both of them together, that's going to be different too. But no, I don't think he's going to be under the radar. But I think because of his starting position and how many drivers are starting behind him who could move past him, plus he had 3 top 10s last year in the road courses, I don't think he's going to be sneaky. But when it's all said and done, I don't think he's going to get the ownership that he should. Is he going to be sub 10%? No. Could he be closer to mid-teens? Yes. Should he possibly be more than 20% owned? Quite definitely.
That's fair. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on over to the place differential, where we know this kind of race is going to get won and lost, which most races are, to be honest, in this bracket. So Coop, walk us through some guys you like with good place differential and good value. I'll be honest, even at a surface level, there are misprices all over this area. So interested to hear who you like in this spot.
I have a slew of options here. And fortunately, that slew of options is going to, balance out the ownership, within these drivers quite a bit, because, they all start basically from 20th to 31st, 32nd, somewhere in that ballpark. Chris Bell is probably my favorite, strictly because, of his experience on road tracks, how he's done on road tracks, and then just flat out how he's racing right now. He's, a top 10, top 5 machine. He had some issues yesterday with the steering. The car was not good. They went back, they've got it all fixed. So hopefully, that'll pick up. Eric Jones, same way. He put down some great laps yesterday, but when it came time to count, the laps weren't that great. So he's had some great runs here. He's going to be very popular too. Then you have Bowman, you got Byron. Possibly Byron will get a little less owned because of his price and starting farther forward, but Alex Bowman is probably mispriced. And he's starting right there next to Byron. So I imagine Alex Bowman's going to gain quite a bit of, ownership too. We have Marty Truex in there, and how to play Marty Truex is probably something that's going to either do you well for this slate or it's going to kick you in the ass. So, he's starting 28th. There was a lot of upside for Marty coming into this race. It's one of his best tracks. He's done here very good in the past. And, he had his buddy Cole Pern coming back this week, taking the place of somebody else in order to help him out because they're at a wedding. So there was a lot of positivity. Well, we get out to the track, get on practice, and then we get, negative Marty. Car sucks. It's slow. It's just not like the old car. I'm not doing well with it. So, he was very down on his car. Are they going to be able to fix it? I don't know. Could the temperature change help him tremendously? Possibly, but, for his price and, what he looked like in practice, he's not worth it. But then on paper, based upon how he's done in the past, could he pull one out of his ass and have a great car today and end up in the top 10 and do very well? Sure. So, I think, I want to be closer to field average on him, maybe a little bit under. I don't want to go all out on him because of that. I don't know what's going to happen. Then we have Austin Cindric, similar situation, where he was probably the most disappointing driver for me yesterday when it comes to practice because, he's a very good young road track driver. And he just didn't do well. Not much was said, haven't heard much, whether he put down some bad laps, was in the bad places, or is the car very slow? So you're going to be taking some chances on him too. And then I think there's a couple more drivers, that I can't think of off the top of my head that might be in there too. But it basically Harvick's in there. It's a loaded section. I think Ricky Stenhouse is in there. Ricky Stenhouse, not very good on these road tracks, but his upside, I don't think you can fade him because of the strategy and how the strategy could work out. He could get up with a top 20 and not have a very good car because he pits at the right time. So I think you got to give him some play too. But, definitely Bell and Jones are my two favorite in here. And then I'll be spreading out, throughout all the other ones. And, that's why, I think with all these drivers, you got to figure 3, maybe 4 of them are going to hit, because there's like 8 of them that could possibly hit. And, for the majority of them not to hit, it would take a lot of, weirdness to happen. So I'm going to be pretty heavy on all these drivers. I'll probably have, 4 to 5 of them in most of my lineups. Sometimes I'll go down to 2 because, we'll get to it. There's some other drivers who I think could pan out too that are going to be lower owned. That would be nice to mix and match with these drivers to offset some of the chalkiness that we see.
That's fair. I think there's a lot to sift through on that end, but place differential, there's just so many crazy prices here, and it's going to create some very high ownership in certain regards. But, it is what it is. Jay, on your end, who do you like that maybe starts from the middle or the back that's got an opportunity to climb to the front?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this mid-range, Kurt Busch has been phenomenal at Sonoma. He has had a very good car all year. 20 to 1 is not a horrible number on Kurt Busch there. Plus 250 to crack the top 5. I think it's possible. I think Ryan Blaney has been very good on road courses the last couple of years. He's 20 to 1 plus 250 to finish in the top 5. But again, like Alex Bowman came on late in that road course race earlier this year, and he was right there at the end contending. Didn't look great in qualifying, but he is 40 to 1. Could it happen if it all falls right for him? It could. Chris Bell is an excellent road course driver, 30 to 1. Didn't look great in qualifying. I guess you can't count him out. And then, listen, Chris Buescher and Michael McDowell put down some really fast laps a couple times. Can they maintain that for 110 laps? I don't know, but Michael McDowell is a road course ringer at 60 to 1. You never know. Even at 6 to 1 to hit the top 5, you never know. So, Coop, did I miss anybody in that range that you think is worth looking at?
No. I mean, you mentioned all of them.
Yeah. So I would say outside chances that could get you there if it all falls right, with the exception of Kurt Busch. I think that car has been so good this year, and he could fall into the nuts at some point in this race at 20-1. But aside from that, Jay, not much.
A lot of good stuff. And speaking of good stuff or not good stuff, 106 watching, 46 likes. Guys, come the fuck on with the likes. Help us out. At least do us some type of favor. We're not asking you for blood here. I mean, we can give blood. We've done it before, but we're not going to do it on this show in particular. Jay, before we head on to the next piece, you want to talk a little bit on the greatness of what you do on the live end and those live shows and the profitability of them for such a low price?
Yeah, I mean, if people have the time to sit down and they live bet every night and they don't have to deal with the family and the kids running around, if you're just a hardcore recreational sports bettor, for an extra $10 a week, it's probably worth getting the live show package, because we do about 20 hours of content a week. And it's been very profitable. I mean, last week we made 30 units. Last night we made 8 going into today. So it might be 8 of the last 9 winning weeks if we can get through today unscathed. So it's worth it for the value if you have time to watch.
Cool, good stuff all around. And let's just carry on. So let's go to value drivers. Obviously, these are drivers that are lower end on the odds spectrum and lower end on the price spectrum that can get you some value to fill in with some studs. Coop, who are some guys you like in the low price ranges?
So real quick before we go there, there's some mid-tier drivers that I want to discuss
yes.
that we might have missed on. Jay hit on them, but AJ Allmendinger, starting 16th, he's going to be very popular. He's probably worth that price though. And then also his starting position, he's, possibly the best road course driver out there. Some people will say Kyle Larson, some will say Chase Elliott. I still think it's the Dinger. He's on a roll. What he did in the Xfinity Series at the last road course last week was incredible. He didn't have the talent that he was up against today, but still what he did was incredible. And if you look at his last 3 Cup races, the last 2 that he's finished on road courses, he has a win, and then he was almost going to win at COTA before the last turn. So he's very competitive. And the thing I like about Dinger is, I talked earlier, some drivers are going to be racing for points, some are going to be racing for win. Dinger will only be racing for the win because the points don't matter for him since he's full-time in the Xfinity Series. So, I'll be very heavy on AJ. We talked about Briscoe a little bit already. I like him. The other 2 drivers Jay hit on earlier, Kurt Busch and Daniel Suarez. The 2 of them are very risky GPP plays. They could both finish very well, 5th, 6th, 4th, 5th, whatever. But if the drivers in the place differential section don't falter, it really doesn't matter how well these 2 drivers do unless they win. They're going to get outscored by the place differential drivers because their starting positions don't allow the upside that those drivers, want or need. So, if you're playing these guys, keep in mind they carry a lot of risk. They should be lower owned, possibly could be higher owned than what we think, because, Suarez, like Jay said, had a killer car at COTA. People like playing him. The price is decent. And then Kurt Busch, too, has just been strong and, fast, too. So, I don't mind playing either one of them. Just hope that they do come in lower ownership than what we would expect.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this middle tier because silly me, I completely skipped it. Jay, in this end, your middle odds, I'll say your guys anywhere between from 15 to 25-1. Who are your favorite looks in that odds range?
From 15 to 25-1, it would probably be Chase Briscoe and Kurt Busch at 18 and 20 to 1. I guess you can't discount AJ Allmendinger, Coop's guy. He is just a beast on road courses. And then that's it. I would say 15 to 25 to 1. You're looking at Dinger, Briscoe, and Kurt Busch.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So now let's move over to the value town drivers. Coop, who are some of these lower price guys that you think could fill up the lineups?
So let me preface this by saying this range just sucks. All right. It was hurt by the fact of Chris Buescher, Michael McDowell, qualifying too good to play. I just can't play them when they're starting third or fourth. Could they end up in the top 10? Sure. But that's not good enough, to play them in daily fantasy sports. So, we have a lot of options. Same with Cole Custer. He's starting sixth. He would have been another solid option down here. So we have a bunch of drivers down here in this range who flat out, they're not very good on road courses. All right. So you're going to have to take your chances. There's not one really that I like more than the other, except for possibly Justin Haley. I like Justin Haley's starting position of 18th. That should keep his ownership down lower, making him a solid GPP play. I like that, he's probably an underrated and he's done better on road courses than most people think. And then probably the big kicker for me is he's teammates with AJ Allmendinger. And, the Dinger is, I'm sure, loaded him with a bunch of information and knowledge. Now, whether he can execute it, that's another story. But, I definitely want to take some shots on Justin Haley. Then you have Bubba Wallace, you've got Brad Keselowski, Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton, all them drivers, Ty Dillon, they're all in the same boat. None of them are very good, at road track. So, I'm just flat out going to spread out my ownership through this range and hope I hit the right one or two that does well. I don't mind Keselowski because Keselowski needs a win. I'm pretty sure he's going to be playing the win card versus the points card, which, could pick up some points for him and, position. But the other piece is Chris Buescher was his teammate, or is his teammate, and he was fast. So, perhaps Keselowski just had a couple bad laps and he's faster than what he shows. So, same with Bubba Wallace, not very good down here. He flat out says he's not good on road courses. So, I will take my shots, at these guys and hope I find the right one. Really the only two that I don't want to play down here are Eric Amarola and Corey LaJoie. They're just not good, flat out. And I know I said these other guys aren't good. They're just really not good on road courses.
That's fair enough. I think that this section makes things very difficult in quite a few different ways, right?
And to be quite honest with you, due to the soft pricing, you can make lineups without these guys down here. So it's a section that you don't even need to go to if you don't want to. But they do offer, upside. But, just keep in mind, they're starting back there, one, because they're slow. Two, the place differential drivers are starting back there because they were slow, but I think they have more upside than what these guys do, as far as their equipment goes and things of that nature. The soft pricing.
And that's fair. I think it makes it
guys down here.
You're playing these bottom feeder guys because you're really hoping for some flavors of attrition, right? I think you're hoping that multiple maybe accidents or crashes happen to multiple guys inside the top 25, 30, where your guy just finishing the race from the back likely does enough for these guys to hit value because their prices are cheap. But to your point as well, Coop, you don't necessarily need to go cheap today because of some of these value prices for place differential. Jay, anybody on the bottom piece, maybe we'll say odds greater than 50 to 1. Anybody you think in there has any upside to win this race?
Oy vey. I guess
it really needs to be 100 to 1. It's called the Talladega Night Special.
I don't see anybody at 100 to 1. I mean, Kevin Harvick, he's 60 to 1. If it all fell right for him, could he win? Maybe. I mean, but yeah, I would probably be avoiding this lower range. I have a DFS question for the two of you. Can you avoid the value town range altogether if you only play one Dominator today?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have had your PC hooked up, you would have heard me say that you can avoid this whole.
I'm sorry. It froze on me. Yeah, it froze on me. But Jay, you know the route to go on the bet show with these long shots. It's shooting your shot like with the manufacturer. Like Coop likes AJ Allmendinger at 8.5 to 1 to be the top Chevy, right? You can't discount Michael McDowell and Chris Buescher. They're 60 or 50 to 1 to win the race, but they're only 11 to 1 to be the top Ford, which if it fell right for them is probably the better way to attack those longer shots on the board. Instead of an outright bet at 60 to 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's fair. I think that there's always multiple ways to skin these types of races. I just find it interesting with the with how many price flubs there are on this mid-price range. And yeah, you could play one Dominator. I'll be honest, Coop. I think there's going to be a lot of lineups that don't have any Dominators. I think that
you can definitely avoid all of them. You know, you could start your lineup at like Chase Briscoe at 15th and go backwards.
Yeah.
Do you guys have data historically on like the optimal lineups on Sonoma and what they've looked like in terms of Dominators being in the lineup, Coop?
I do not, but I would imagine that it would be very low. Like I would imagine last year, Kyle Larson was definitely in it with how many laps he led and, winning, and even though he started on the pole. But I don't know if Chase Elliott was paired with him or not. I would be surprised if he was. And then, the other piece too is, maybe there weren't as many good Dominator. I mean, place differential plays last year is what there is, for this particular race too.
Yeah, because it's all pricing related, right, Jay? Like the pricing really decides where ownership goes. And I think that if you have this many misnomers in your pricing, it's going to influence how things look. And you'd have to basically you'd have to look at the slates that were played previously and try to find one that had similar pricing to the way this one is, where you have a bunch of these mid-priced racers that are priced too short. And then you have, your guy and a guy like Truex who's coming from the back, who's likely going to be very high owned today. Because that's what it is, right? I think that the data could definitely tell you, yeah, guys from 15 to 25 moved up. But what if DraftKings properly priced those guys and their ownership wasn't going to be there? So
right.
There's definitely multiple sides to it, but
are you considering that, Jay, not playing any Dominators in lineups today?
I'm likely going to have one guy. Because I always create groups and optimizers, so I'm likely going to have like a group of what I'll claim to be the potential Dominators of like 7 or 8 guys, and I'm going to require all my lineups to have one of those guys, and then I'm likely going to create all my place differential options. And I'm going to likely say I need at least 3 of them, which is going to be like 13 or 14 of those drivers. And then, it's the optimizer's job to finish the rest, but I'm likely going to build it that way, where at least 3 place differentials and at least 1 Dominator. Now, that'll mean some lineups get created with 2 Dominators. Some lineups get created with 5 place differential drivers. But I think that it might make me a little different, because I do think that place differentials where people are going to look to get their points today. There's not a lot of laps. There's a lot of variance to this type of race. Pit crews are critical here. I think place differential is going to be where a lot of people go to build the majority of their lineups.
It's not going to be as high as what you think, because of how the slate's set up. Let's say, like, if with Kyle Larson on the pole and Chase Elliott right behind him, those 2 guys are going to get a buttload of ownership. If, let's say, those drivers were starting 5th or 6th and 7th or 8th, they probably wouldn't be getting as much, and it would be a lot more place differential than what it is going to be today in that scenario. So from a place differential perspective, it's better to have them 2 on it. And then not only that, if you fade those 2, it's going to make those drivers like a Chris Bell, Eric Jones, when you play them, sure, they might be 30% owned, but of that 30%, probably 15 to 20% of it is going to be combined with a Kyle Larson.
Are you instantly different today if Elliott and Larson are not in your lineup?
Yeah, 50% at least.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are going to want to have one of them in their lineup, but I don't think Like, I'll be
I don't
honest,
think a lot are going to play both.
I think Truex is going to be like double their ownership.
Really?
Just like the way, I mean, especially in the higher stakes, because you're going to build your lineups with expected projections, and Truex is going to get a lot of free points in his projections. And Truex is like his odds are like in the top 10, and he's starting from like 30th. So you're basically banking on that he's going to start with a free 20 points for place differential.
You know what's crazy though, man? He could easily lay an egg and shit the bed today and not have it.
Oh, I mean, in the high dollars, I mean, you just pivot off of Truex to buyer. You're going to save the money. You're going to save the ownership. And then the other piece too is I don't mind leaving money on the table today because that'll make you more unique too.
So Andre says Bell, Dinger, and Jones to the rear. Is that confirmed?
I mean, Bell was already back there.
Okay.
Jones is already back there. And Dinger, I could care less about because, he's going to pit and play the winning position.
Right.
I tell you what, Alvin
it's
Dinger,
just going to make his ownership lower because people are going to look at it and be like, oh, I can't play him.
that is interesting though, Coop, right? Because in a race, it's going to be tough to pass. He gets scored from 16.
Right. But it is not as tragic as if the driver was starting 8th or 5th.
That's true. That's true. I guess it does create a little. You need him to do a little more though for you.
I mean, look at the truck race last night. Carson Hocevar laid down almost a second faster laps than the nearest guy in practice.
Yeah.
All right. He wrecked the car in qualifying. He started on the pole. They had a driver switch. He fell down 2 laps. All right. Got those 2 laps back. And it still took him, forever to get back up into the top 10. I think he finished 6th or 7th. Okay. So, if he was starting, in that top 6 or 7, it didn't work out, obviously when we started first. But again, 16th, where Allmendinger's starting. If he does the same thing and finishes 8th, I'm going to be happy with that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that, and I get it. I get the Bell and Jones don't really mean much. I mean, they're moving down
They mean
3
nothing.
spots. Almendinger though is interesting. But I guess we'll see how that plays
I think
out.
the biggest thing that's interesting is people are going to look at it. Instead of his ownership being 30 or 35%, now maybe it's 25.
That's fair. All right. Last but not least, fades, guys. You don't think you're gonna have any exposure to, or guys you don't want anything near.
Well, I talked about the lower tier of Custer, Busher, McDowell. They're just starting too far ahead. While we're in that range, Joey Hand, very good road course driver, just starting too far forward for me. And then also Cody Ware, like he starts dead last. He's starting dead last because he didn't put up a qualifying lap. And I think he failed 4 times, which means he loses points. So, he's going to have points taken off of him at the end, no matter how far up he gets. So he's pretty much dead in the water. Logano, Blaney, and Hamlin are my, strong fades. I just don't like the prospects for Denny Hamlin. He's a solid road course racer, but he has very few wins in this format. And I think he's going to end up, 5th, 6th, 7th would be a good day for him, which isn't going to help based on his price and his starting position. Logano is a scary fade, but again, I don't think he pays off his price. Logano's in a great position to play strategy because he has 2 wins. So, that could burn and backfire on me. And then Blaney, the price again, he does have some place differential upside, but I think, he's solid on these road courses, but I think I like the other drivers better. I think he's going to get some ownership, and I'm going to pass on him.
That's fair. And then Jay, on your end, anybody you're more or less staying away from today, despite how good they may look on the track?
No, I'm gonna let the race dictate everything. I made those 2 bets that I said going into the race. I haven't decided if I'm going to throw any money on Kyle Busch before the race starts. I don't know, but yeah, aside from that, we're just going to let the race dictate. If I was picking a winner today, I would go with either Busch or Kyle Larson, the Kyles today. I'm going to say Busch for the upset. Coop likes Busch. I think it's going to be a Busch party today.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, real quick, let's talk a little NFL underdog. Best ball, $10 million. Best ball mania, 3 contests for 10 mil. Promo code Run Pure gets new signups, $100 deposit bonus or deposit match bonus with their first deposit. So head over to Underdog, especially if you're playing a lot of these season-long underdog leagues anyway, or if you're into season-long, definitely all good stuff there. And I know we mentioned the core plays in the playbook that we offer. We also have a very active Discord when you become a member. A lot of good stuff in there, a lot of juicy stuff. You can ping members, even like guys like Coop and Keg, can ping them in there with questions you have all the way up to lock, which is always good and always nice value. Overall, good show today, boys. I think you guys did a good job. I think you could have been better, but I think you did good. No, just kidding. Always good content all around. And look, we got 150 people watching and 66 likes. I can't express this enough. I hate you all. It's not hard. Just go ahead and like the video. But needless to say, thanks everybody for joining us for a Sunday talk on NASCAR on our core plays as well. And needless to say, any final notes, Jay or Coop?
Run Pure, baby.
We just pick them out that you're fairly comfortable losing today and play it because, if you go with Larson and Elliott, you're going to need them to be perfect and you're going to be playing against a bunch of other lineups. And then if you fade them, it could be, very good for you if Larson and Elliott don't win or do well. But if they do end up doing well, that's where you just need to be comfortable playing it out that you decide to lose.
Love it. Good stuff. I mean, that should be always the case, right? I mean, play where you're comfortable losing. Don't ever put yourself in weird jams. I mean, that's always, never good. It always sucks.
The thing is, today, you can't go 50%. You can't go field average on Larson and Elliott. You either need to be all in or you need to be all out, because 50% is not going to do you very good.
What Coop is saying is, if you're going to crush today, crush responsibly. I think
Yeah.
I think that's basically what.
Touche. Okay, folks. Thanks again for watching. Big thanks to Coop and Kegger for always providing quality info on these items, especially, across multiple sports. NASCAR, you guys just absolutely smash week in and week out. So thank you for that. And again, folks, gamble responsibly today. Stay safe. And as always, run pure. Simon, get us out of here. It was cool, kid.